Hello everyone and welcome back to Wicked Art. It's Wicked here and it is our little Monday art lesson. So I thought we'd change things up a bit from people and things like that to do 2-point perspective. Okay, so if you haven't seen my old perspective videos for you, this would be a good little intro for you. All you need is a straight edge of some kind. So it doesn't have to be a ruler as long as you just have something that's straight. So like I'm going to use the edge of this folder. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a horizon line. Okay. Now that's going to be the point at which the person is staring straight forward. So I'm going to go ahead and use my edge here. Find a pencil with some actual lead in it. Okay. And then I'm going to lightly press down on the paper and draw a line straight across. And then I'm going to lightly put 2 dots at either end of my paper. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is think about, where do I want certain things to go. So like my sidewalk here, so we're going to draw kind of like a street view almost. So I'm going to kind of draw a line to a point. Sorry, my folder wants to fall on me now. Okay, so then I'm going to take this point and line it up here to where the two connect, right? So next thing I want to do is I want to get the edge of that sidewalk. Now, the easiest way to do that is if I just make sure that my edge is straight, up and down horizontally. Okay, I'm going to put the tiniest little line right here. Okay, then all I have to do is make sure my dot and the top of that line are connected. And I simply just connect it. Like that, and I'll do the same thing to the other side here. Okay, so that's going to give me the edge to my sidewalk. What I want to do now is create the top surface. Now, the way you're going to create that is judging where your actual building is going to be. So I want it to kind of sit back in there just a little bit. So what I'll do is, for now, I'm going to use that same edge on the corner and just extend that as thick as, that I want the sidewalk to be. So I'm going to take that down just a little bit. And it doesn't matter which way you put your edge, just as long as you can see what it is you're doing. So I'm going to line up with a dot over here. Line it up with the top. Draw that back. And again, do the same thing to the other side over here. Okay. Now, the difference on this is going to be, see how it's kind of like a sharp point on there? I want it to kind of round out, right? So all I have to do is come down here and just round the corner. Okay, so I can just go nice and controlled and round it off. Same thing with this spot here. can round that off there. And then same thing here in the back. Just kind of round it off. Okay. Now when it comes to the sidewalk itself, it just depends on how big of the walking space is in between. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up, bring that corner back. I'm going to set up the edges of the sidewalk. So I'm going to make mine relatively large sidewalk spaces. But as I start fading towards the dot, those spaces will become closer together. So kind of think of it like it's fading off into the distance. That might be a little too close. Let's bring it in just a tad. Okay, and again, as I move out, spaces will get closer. And you can take that as far back as you'd like. It just depends how much of the city street you're trying to show. And I'm just erasing out those little bits that are kind of peeking over the line. Now, if I want to, I can very slowly refine those lines. The reason I'm doing that now is because if I'd have done that earlier and needed to erase, my line may not disappear. So I can count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines. So I'm going to try my best to make 8 lines going back. And again, I'm just going to work my way back. Try my best. It doesn't have to be perfect, but try my best to keep it even. 3. So now we've gone back 8 spaces. Okay. And again, once I have that, I mean, you can try to freehand draw it if you don't want to do that, just to be safe. You can try and line it up with your previous line. Problem is, you can run the risk of being off, okay? So at the risk of not being off, and sorry guys, I have a shaky hand. It's one of my detriments to drawing. But I'm going to control and make a solid line. Nice and refined, at least back to this last point here. Okay. So that takes care of the edge of our sidewalk, right? Now I gotta get the top down. I can't just go in here and draw straight lines going up because that's not gonna give us the correct angle. So we're gonna use the opposite dot to help us with that. So if I wanna get the lines on this sidewalk, I need to use this dot on this side, okay? So all I have to do is line that up. And then watch what happens when I draw it. can see how that's kind of cut into right there, right? Now, depending on how you want your sidewalk to look, it doesn't really honestly matter. At the end of the day, it's going to be your choice. But as you can see, I keep using the dot to go back. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to get rid of this first one. And anything that you happen to erase, you can just bring it back with your pencil. Okay, so I erased that first line there too. Keeping it on this dot. Now make sure that you check that your dot is still visible and it's lined up with the top of your last segment. So I'm going to draw that and just stop at the edge of the sidewalk. Okay, and then I'm just going to continue down. Doing the same thing to each one. Now again, it's up to you what you want your sidewalk shape to look like. Like I have these long rectangles. If you don't like that rectangular shape, you're going to have to go back and adjust the thickness part here. And then you can turn it into a square if you want. Okay, so that takes care of the entire sidewalk on this side. Now if I want to do this side, I'm going to use this dot over here. And I keep saying the word dot. The correct term would be a vanishing point, but you can just say dot. Okay, so we're going to go to the next one. Again, I'm always checking to make sure that my dot is lined up with the top here. Because if you just start sliding it, eventually it's going to tilt to a point where it's not even, and then your lines are going to be off. So always stop and make sure that your lines are where they're at. And that you can still see that dot on the corner of your straight edge, whether it's a ruler or a folder. Okay. So now that that takes care of the top of my sidewalk, I can come in here. So that's connected. Now I can go through and refine my line to there. I'm sorry for blocking a little bit, but okay. So now that that's nice and solid, here's what I can do. To keep it nice and clean, I can break off these lines so we don't just start getting lines going everywhere. I can break off these lines on the sidewalk here. And that's just because we're focusing on this front area in particular. Obviously, this sidewalk would go on into oblivion until we figured out where, you know, the city ends. Okay, so now I want to think about my buildings, right? How tall do I want it to be? Is it going to only be this tall, or is it going to extend up past? Either way, it's going past the horizon line. So I'm going to keep it even with the center of this sidewalk. I'm going to line it up with that. I'm going to start right here on the edge. I'm going to lightly draw me a line all the way up here to the top. Okay? Now, this doesn't really give us much but a corner to the building, right? So I can plan ahead and think about how wide I want my building to be as well. So all I'd have to do is just choose. Usually what I like to do is slide out from the center to kind of get my varies a little on, how thick. And I think about right there should be okay. So I'll just draw my line lightly up there. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. Okay, I want it to be about the same thickness. Okay, so not quite the same, but it's close enough. Okay, so next thing I do now is I can get the roof to my building, right? Well, how do I do that? Well, I'm going to come to the furthest corner here in the middle, line it up with my dot right here. Okay, so make sure your dot and your corner are lined up. And then you simply just lightly draw a line. It goes down. Just like that. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Make sure I'm on my corner. And lightly draw a line down there. So now I have the building that is sitting on the corner. So what I can do now is we can go ahead and clean up. These excess lines. Okay. Now, let's say I wanted to not have such a sharp corner, right? I want to do the same thing down here where it kind of rounded. So simply what I can do is just break off this corner, right? And now it's not perfectly straight at a corner. It's kind of rounded off up here. Okay. And what we'll do is we're going to set out the foundations of these buildings first, right? So the next thing I want to do is think about where's the next one at. Is the next one just as tall or is it shorter? So we're going to go for probably about the same height. But again, I want to judge where the thickness of my building is. So we're just going to take it straight out to the corner of the sidewalk right here. And again, I'm just going to lightly draw a line going up. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side over here. Lightly draw me a line going up. So this is going to be my two buildings on the side. The next thing I'm going to do is, in order to achieve that same effect, I'm going to need to line it up with a dot. And we're going to make this building probably slightly shorter. And I do mean slightly. Okay. But you can see how it changes the perspective on it, right? And again, this is why we draw lightly at first, because that'll allow me to erase without leaving anything behind. Okay, now this other set of buildings on this side, we're going to go a little shorter. Okay, so I'm going to line up with that dot, and let's bring it down. We'll go about this tall, so this is going to be a much shorter building as far as height goes. And I can just connect that there, right? So now we're getting some variation to the size of our building, so it's not all the same, right? Now this one, with the way it's connected, I'm going to drop that down some. I want that to be a little bit shorter. Okay. That way it's a little bit tinier. So let's come in here and erase. Bring that up. So now you have the basic foundations of your buildings done. The problem is now is just thinking about little things that you want to do to help bring it to life. Now at this point, you don't have to use a ruler, and I stress you don't have to, but it can benefit you if you're not used to drawing in perspective. Okay, so for example, I want this top part of the roof to have an edge to it, right? So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to come to this very top corner right here, and I'm going to bring in the edge of this building, right? Now if you notice, that means I now have to change some stuff, right? So I'm going to come up to this corner, I'm going to give it the same deal. I'm going to come up to the very edge of that corner. I'm going to try to keep it even and just come in a little bit. Okay, so now I can take this and just by doing that, we've already changed the structure of the building itself, right? So now I can see the outside corner of that one. I can see the outside corner of that. And again, to get those back correct, you simply just line up with the dot. On both sides to get their corners accurately going behind the buildings, right? So here's where a little freehand can come into play, right? Because I don't want this to be a perfect corner. We rounded it off. So if this is my lower edge, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look closely at trying to keep it parallel and start rounding, right? And then I can come down here to this corner we can do the same thing and kind of round that off. So now we can start constructing this building as it would be like on the way down. Okay, so first thing I want to do is get the very edge. So I'm just going to go ahead and at least for the outer edge of this building, I'm going to go ahead and refine those lines by darkening it because I know I'm not going to change the outside edge of it. Okay, so those can be nice and solid there, right? Now I can come in here maybe just have a nice firm closer edge. Okay, so that's the very top edge of my building. Now I want to give an illusion of depth. I'm going to come down here . I'm going to come down here. 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 I'm going to And I'm going to thicken up this bottom line. Just like that. We're going to try to keep it even the best we can. Again, just depending on what you're doing. If you're doing something for like architecture or something like that, then obviously you want it to be perfect. But for today's purposes and what we're doing, I'm not stressing about it. Okay. So now that I have that set up, I can start thinking about, other little details. Like, do I want to come in here and just add something in, right? The problem is you can't just willy-nilly do that, right? Because again, if we want true perspective, you're going to have to come in and get your angles to follow the building correctly, right? So what I can do is just line up with that, get whatever gap and spaces that I want between each one. All right, so you can see I just have like these pieces just kind of coming out and connecting. Next thing is I'm just going to continue to work my way up. The building. And just move on as I go. Now, obviously, you want to try your best to keep things even. But if it doesn't, the general idea of what you're doing will be there. Okay, so they're not perfectly the same shape every time, but we're at least getting to where we want as we move down the building. Okay, so again, I'm gonna make sure I'm on my dot. Okay, and then the last thing I'll do is we'll get as close to this corner as we can. Like that. And then what we'll do is we'll just end it with two straight lines that go up the building, right? And then we want to do the same thing going down the other side. So, as you can see, doing this, it is time consuming. And again, I try to make this channel a free step-by-step tutorial that's not hidden behind a paywall or anything. So you're just gonna have to bear with me on this. As we continue to move Alright, so I'm just continuing to move up. So things like this where there's more straight edge to it is where I tend to use the ruler. There are some spots where I won't, and that's usually for things that are going to require more of a rounded look to it that I can't get with a straight edge. Okay. So that's going to take care of the roof, right? Now I can start planning out different things of, you know, layers to the building. So like, let's say we want a trim line. Again, I'm going to try to keep it parallel. Now again, if you want to, you can use a ruler. That'll help keep things perfect. You can just erase that corner and then, you know, go from there. One thing I will do on this is just to give it that illusion of an edge, I'm going to go back through and we're going to thicken that out. And again, it'll just give a cheap illusion of there being an edge. And as you practice this more too, you'll be able to add as little or as much detail as you want. Excuse me. Okay, so we're going to do one more edge, and then we're going to do something to help us not look like a corner, you know, because we want it to kind of be rounded. So I'm going to do one more edge, and again, just kind of keeping it parallel. Just like that. Okay. So now I can start thinking about windows, right? Where do I want them to fall and how? Well, our window area is going to extend to the front corner here, and that is rounded. Okay, so that's going to make it a little challenging to draw the actual, like, instead of just doing a straight on window. So what we want to do is let's come in here. We want to first decide the spatial gap between the window top and bottom. So that's our top edge, right? So I'm going to take it down. Let's use the bottom like this. Okay, so let's do here to here. And here to here, like that. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that corner line, right? And we need to make this rounded, just like it is on the top. So we're going to round that out. Okay, now for the actual building itself, first of all, let's do this. Let's give this an edge, just so we know that that is the bottom. apologize for my chair. It's extra squeaky today. I'll have to find a way to tighten up the screws in it or something. Okay, so I have that edge down there. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to arch my window, right? Okay, and then I can use my straight edge. I'm going to make sure it's even with the top. I'm going to line it up. And we're going to come down to about right here. And then again, I'm just going to kind of arch it over. And we'll switch sides. Make sure that stays even. Okay, so that's going to be my first window on a rounded corner, right? Now, what could we do to give it more of a window look? Well, let's just go ahead. Just kind of put like a window divide right here. Then we can come through very slowly and carefully. Give like a window pane vibe, right? And then you can just divide it up, okay? So again, use a ruler, don't use a ruler, but that's up to you. That can be the edge of my window base. And then, to just give it a little bit something more, we can add like a brick line to it, right? I can do the same thing up here. Right? It just gives it a little bit more detail to it, okay? Now the rest of it is pretty straightforward, pretty simple, okay? So I'm going to try to fit 1, 2, I'm going to do about 3 windows in here. So again, I'm just going to use that center line edge that I have already. I'm going to slide that out. Alright, so now I have 3 more windows. Now the key here for our window sets is we want to keep that kind of brick pattern going. So we're going to simply make this the gaps in between. Okay, now I need to do the same thing with the actual window part, right? So I can use what I have to help guide me. get my window. Now the key difference here is our window is going to go all the way down. Okay. And then I can do the same thing. Right inside there. And inside there as well. Okay. Now if I want to get that same dividing window pane, right, you're gonna have to line everything up. I think we had a little bit higher. So I can simply come in here, get my lines where I want them. And then find that gap that I want between each line. And then we can get our brick. Get our brick. Right, and then I would just slide that down some more. Minding the gaps that I put in there. Okay, so you can see how we're getting that brick line work in there. Now we're going to do one more. Right down here. Again, make sure you put it in the right spot though. Okay. Make sure it connects. So now we have some texture and variation going on here to at least make it different, right? And now you can continue that trend down all the way. But we're going to go ahead, we're going to finish off this this top area here. Now, if you want, you know, a little variety, they don't have to have the same amount of windows. So again, I'm going to come in here. Draw on our windows. like that. Get our brick areas. And then once you get good enough, notice how I did not use a ruler. Once you get good enough, you don't have to use one anymore, right? You'll be able to just take it and do with it as you need to get it going, right? So what I usually do is I judge where that line is. And just run it through. And that gives us the rest of our window on that. Okay. So now I want to show some separation again. I don't want to just go down, down, down and build that way, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to keep things parallel. I'm going to round it off again. Give a gap, give some space. Okay. And then for this piece here, we'll just thicken up the bottom. Again, just give us a quick illusion of an edge. Now this building will be the most intricate one. The other ones are going to be pretty straightforward. Just think of this as kind of like a corner store, or maybe even a restaurant. It's honestly your choice on how you want to take it. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is, much like I did here at the top, there is, some semblance of a pattern here. Right? So you can see we're kind of building up the corner here without having to have this line straight down the middle, and it gives you a little bit more variation. The next thing I'm going to do is we want to get the bottom of the window again. Okay, so we had about an inch difference. So what I'm trying to get you to do, if you notice when I'm not using the edge, I'm trying to train your mind's eye to be able to start seeing in perspective, because once you get that down, you don't really need to use rulers and straight edges and things anymore, right? So now we have another section right here, right? But we could add another section of windows. You could also make it like a wraparound for a sign. There's really all kinds of things you could do right in there. So what we'll do is we'll make that kind of a wraparound, and this will just help us kind of save some time a little bit, so this video is not like super duper long. Okay, so we want to get another section here. So again, for now, just gonna lightly draw right there. Okay, now I know I don't want a corner. So what we'll do is we'll close that off. We'll get that nice and refined. Take out that sharp corner a little bit. Okay. And then build in one more edge right in here. Okay. So I'm going to put another set of windows in here, but we're going to do it a little differently. And then down here will be like where all our doors and stuff is. So we're going to do like some pillars right in here. So let's do like this. Let's go straight line there. I'm just doing this back and forth real quick just so I can keep things somewhat even. Okay. And that'll kind of lead to the edge of the window there. So again, I'm going to put like pillars here, so I'm going to draw a line here. Like that, right? Now, I'm going to go through and do all the pillars first, and then we're going to add, the detail that we need. Okay. Now, these pillar spaces can vary from size to size, just depending upon whether or not you're keeping things symmetrical. As far as spaces between windows, what windows are what size. It's really up to you. Okay, so like I have these like somewhat even gaps here. I can just as easily come right here and make a shorter window, right? And do the same or different on that side. Okay, so I'm going to add in one more pillar here. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is go through, we're going to keep that brick pattern. And then I can slide it down. If you notice, I'm using the corner. And I'll just keep working my way down. Making sure my dot is visible. Okay. And that takes care of that. And now we can do it to the other side. So I'll just continue working my way down. So if you can see, I'm trying my best to keep it somewhat even, but you don't have to be a perfectionist with it for at least the purpose that we're using it for. Like I said, if you're doing like architecture or something, or laying out blueprints, yeah, you're gonna need to make sure you're accurate on that. People don't want you building their house crooked. Okay. So now, next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give this a top edge. And I want to kind of stop there because I want to make sure that it's rounded. So we'll kind of extend it out a little bit there. So we'll kind of round that off like that. Okay, and then down in here, again, I don't want a corner. We want it rounded. So I'm going to come in here. Got this section done. I'm going to, again, give an illusion of a bottom edge. Right? And then what I can do is we can make the entry door, right in here, right off the corner. And then the rest just be wide open windows. Okay. So in order to do that, we're going to need a little bit of a gap here. So as you can see, almost falls exactly on the horizon line, right? But here's where we're going to change some stuff up. I'm going to come through and we're going to make the door to come in. So that'll be the front door. Again, that'll round off right here. Sorry about the coughing today, guys. And then I'll want like kind of like a pillar to it. So I'm going to separate and make large street windows with a pillar between each one. Again, you can change up window size and shape to whatever you want. And then I'm just going to go through and where those pillars connect, erase those out so that they're separate, right? And then I'm going to do the same thing going down the other side. Okay, I want to make sure that I give it a pillar. Again, you can vary the size. Of your window, and it doesn't have to be the same amount either. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the pillar lines on the top, just so that I have it, you know, the way that I want it. So this is essentially my doorway, right? The way that I'm getting into the building. The other thing we have to think about is the depth of which we walk into our building. Okay, and then most doors just have a line down the middle. Put little handles on it or whatever, right? And then we want to do the same thing here. We're thinking about depth. Or pillars. Again, certain points just start training your mind's eye to see. Just so you don't have to worry too much about it. And you'll be able to start drawing things, not everything, but most things, without needing to use a ruler. Now, one thing I do want to do is I want to bring this part back up on these windows. I want them to be solid on the bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to simply erase out just like that. Okay, and we're not going to do anything crazy with you know, adding in people walking down the street, things like that. But we can add as much detail as we can. We're just trying not to go too crazy with it. Okay, now it's up to you completely, like what you want to do from here. Like if you want to come in here and add another brick texture, same thing. With the pillar. We can create more depth to it. By giving it an edge. Angling our lines just enough towards the vanishing point. And what that'll do is it'll add a little bit more depth to your artwork. Okay. Obviously on this part, once we're done with that, you're just going to switch sides that you're putting the edge of your pillar on. Now again, if you're worried and you want a perfectly straight line, by all means, use the straight edge. To work that in there. Okay, so you can see how that's making it pop and stand out a little bit more. Again, if you want to use a straight edge because you just want it to be absolutely perfect, by all means do so. I'm sure some places would prefer that you do it that way. But I'm also trying not to make this a 3-hour video. Okay. So now we have our front building done, right? I told you these next two buildings are going to be a lot easier. They're just going to be simple, generic, right? So this one I want on this side, I'm going to line up with my dot over here. I'm going to come up here to this corner. I'm going to extend that out. Just make sure you're on the corner. Okay. Do the same thing here. Extend it out a little bit. Then I can use this dot and connect the two. Let's come out this way. Because that's not going to look right, so let's try it this way. So I do know that this is going to be a solid corner. And so will that. So I can go ahead and refine those lines. I'm going to angle out. This way. Sorry, I keep drawing that too thick. So I'm just going to kind of go up at a 45-degree angle on both sides here. Okay. That's not the traditional way to do this, but I think it's going to work out best. Okay, and then I can just run that one back without going too crazy. I'm going to refine that line on the building there. Okay. Now, this one's going to have just basic of the basic windows, stuff like that. Just kind of putting these little corner doodads in there just for some texture. Okay, now watch this. We're just going to come in here and we're going to draw a line here. Now notice I did not touch the edges. Okay, I just went from here to here. And I'm going to do the same thing right underneath it. Okay, I'm going to slide down some. See where I'm at. Probably do one more maybe. See how low we're getting. I'll leave that like that. Okay, and I can simply come through. Get my edges. Okay. Make sure that I'm straight. And as I slide on through, I'm going to make simple windows. I think this would be kind of like a corner office maybe. Very generic. Almost like a white stucco. Okay, now here's the trick. We don't want it to just be one straight line, right? So I'm going to erase every other window. leaving that gap from one window to the next. And just get that last edge right there. Now, excuse me, I could just leave it like that, and I could choose to alternate, but I'm gonna choose to leave some symmetry in the window design, like they planned for all the office spaces and everything to be perfectly lined up, kind of like on what you would see on big skyscrapers and stuff like that. Okay, so that takes care of our building windows. Now we can come down here and sorry, that one kind of slid a little bit. Okay, and again, gonna make a door. Just put a little edge to it. You can make your handles however you want. That's gonna be the door to that building. And then we're gonna make this one like it's a little bit more modern type building, right? So I'm gonna come down here, keep my line straight, come down. Okay, so see how I did not connect at the top? I want to leave a little bit at the corner. Okay, this one's gonna be a little bit smaller because it's farther down. Just like that. Race out of the corner. I definitely want to darken this edge. So a more modern looking building will just have a real simplistic look to it. So windows pretty much maybe all touching or connecting. Right? And then what we can do here is where like we want the entrance. I'm gonna go ahead and we're just gonna darken this corner. Again, we're gonna kind of do the same on this side. Okay, but I want to have an entryway, right, for the door. Okay, so we can kind of have go for like an edge right here. And then Again, we can give that kind of an edge. And then what we'll do is we'll come in here, add in that glass, bring that down. And we'll just add in a door right here. Just something simple. Okay. And then with this, we can just add the separation to come from the bottom this way. So we want our window here. Like that. Shift it down. Kind of keeping it somewhat even, right? And then we don't want that glass touching the ground, so let's bring that and hit that edge. Just like that. Okay, so you have yourself a nice little set of buildings, right? And then we can erase out our stuff. Now if you wanted to add a little something to the scene, just to kind of help bring it to life a little bit, you can add in some clouds, you know, whatever you wanted, just to kind of make it turn out. Okay, so sorry it was kind of a long one, but perspective takes time. It does. But I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. Do me a favor, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the video, what more ideas you want to see. It's for you, not for me. Okay? For those of you that are subscribed, I thank you. For those of you that just dropped in to check this out, I appreciate you too. Again, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what other stuff you want to learn so that I can help put things together for you. Other than that, I really appreciate you stopping by. Remember to keep on sketching. And until next time, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.